Several years ago, the North Carolina State University had a guest speaker, which was the celebrity designer Sid Mead, who's a legendary graphic artist who's worked on many, many famous Hollywood productions and even designed airplanes for the Sultan of Brunei and whatnot. And he left such an impression on me because, of course, he is such a legend, but he also had a quote that he said where he says, it's when you start in reality, then it's easier to go into fantasy, right? And it's like, I took from that basically whenever you have something crazy in your world universe, you need to have something very grounded. And starting Gears 2 in a hospital, a place that is, by all accounts, a very normal location, and of course making it beautiful because that's what our artists do. And then going and continuing through the campaign and winding up in such strange, unique locations. I don't want to spoil too much of what happens, but there are places that are completely otherworldly in this in the sequel. It was that much of a more interesting contrast because if you start weird, you can only get weirder. So you start with something that's familiar, it's something that's identifiable, and then you get strange, and everything resonates that much more. So the war against the Locust seemed to have an upswing after the end of the first game when we unleashed the light mass bomb on them, but the Locusts are back as, of course, all nefarious villains wind up returning, and they're stronger than ever. But they're also raiding supply stations, including this hospital, which is what the opening scene is. So, I mean, we start off with, injured soldiers being wheeled in and choppers flying overhead and grind lift derricks whizzing by and alarms going off, and it's very much a chaotic environment. And then it gets even worse with Locust attacking and trying to steal supplies. And we kind of wanted to contrast, what is essentially a very healing place with an actual war scene that occurs within.
This is some hospital stuff. We really wanted hospital to kind of continue the feel of Gears 1 with the destroyed beauty look and kind of the European architecture. The color scheme kind of stayed Gears 1 with the greenish bronzes and the brick and stuff like that, and then we wanted to take it in kind of a new direction with some of the architecture, so we've added some little structures and little toothy things outlining some of the areas, and you can look, and there's a lot of domed rooftops and things like that to kind of set it and give it a more city feel. You've got skywalks and things like that. This next image is kind of the inner courtyard of the hospital. There's the snake's health, kind of the vitality image structure right there. Wanted to look a little overgrown because it's kind of been fortified and stuff like that. This next image is a detail of kind of a facade. For Gears 1, a lot of the stuff we would do a nice detailed piece, and then some of the other stuff can be built with a different technology like BSP with timeline textures or things like that. But we like to dress that stuff up with really high detail meshes. So this will be one of those meshes, and a lot of times you can get away with that with a facade for a building because you have a nice funky shape and make it look nice. This image is a blown out hospital area. This is kind of some mood pieces for the inside of hospital. What it might look like if a Reaver crashed through the roof or whatever after some combat and stuff like that. Here's a hallway. We just wanted to kind of get a feel for what the generic hallways in the hospital would look like, the color schemes that we were going to use, what type of furniture, handrails, etc. This is an older version of the hospital that kind of looked, we kind of went away from this a little bit because it was a little more high tech and went more with the traditional hospital hall that you saw previous.
What we're looking at here in this screenshot is the Unreal editor showing a picture of hospital under construction. What you're seeing here is 4 different screens, one showing a wireframe overhead view of the map. Next on the side is a side view of the wireframe of the map. The two lower, actual in-game seeing what the map will look like, one showing the pathing network. What the pathing network is how we send the AI through the level, moving from spot to spot, knowing where they can take cover. Next screen here is Kismet. Kismet is how we do our scripting for the level. And what scripting basically is our ability to say who spawns in the level where, when you see him, who says what, and where they move to. Here's another screenshot of the editor showing the level in wireframe only. And what we're seeing here is the dark blue meshes are the stuff that are destructible in the world, things that are going to be fracturable. Things that are red are other. Here's another screenshot showing the lighting of the map and lighting only. This allows us to see hot spots in the level and see real shadows where they're happening and adjust the light as necessary. Here's another map showing a pathing network up close. As you can see, there's two different types of links out here. The larger round links are the actual cover. If you were to select one of those, you'd see red boxes showing exactly where the player can take cover and what kind of hover it is. You also have this little icon that shows what looks like a light switch. It's a trigger. Those triggers, when the player enters them, cause events to happen. In this situation, it's actually to a door. When you walk up to that, an icon will show up telling you can kick this door open. Use your X button, kick that door open. Okay, here's a early concept plus the real level of hospital. Basically what it is inside here, we have worm pieces of meat throughout the trays ahead of us, and we composited in one of our new creatures. He's basically a slaughterman, a big boomer with a sword for cutting up the fresh meat. Something you'll never see in the real game.
In this image, you can see one of the recovery wards, and you can see how it's kind of very disorganized and very overcrowded, or it should be overcrowded. You can see the nursing station on the left, and yeah, it's supposed to be kind of bloody. You know, there's a lot of injured and wounded cog here. That it's seen a lot of war and a lot of tragedy.
On this page, you'll see a wall panel, some ceiling panels, some plants, and a laptop. I spent some time modeling the laptop, trying to come up with an identity that I thought would match the Gears of War universe. So what I did was I took some of the imagery found throughout the game, the big cog symbol, and etched it into the back of the computer. That way players would have something they would recognize, sort of a little nod to players from the first game. In terms of the wall, I got a lot of inspiration from Baroque architecture, a lot of sort of cleaner shapes as opposed to what we had in the first game. The ceiling panel, I tried to match as closely to the wall as possible. A lot of this inspiration came from one of our concept artists, Shane Pierce, who I think a lot of his inspiration also came from Baroque architecture. So on this page, you'll see some trim work that was used to lay out the ceiling structure of the hospital. You'll also see one column that I made that was initially concepted by Shane Pierce. On this page, you'll see a column, a low desk panel, and a door. The column was the first asset I think we had for the environments in Gears of War 2. The curvature that you see in there was mostly inspired by one of Shane Pierce's sketches, but a lot of the Gears visuals come from sort of an Art Deco inspiration, and they kind of go back to that 1950s feel. This piece was basically my first test piece where it was all built in Mudbox. So I basically started with a box and just etched in all the lines in Mudbox, and it was sort of a hard surface test for me to see if Mudbox was viable for doing hard surface models, and it worked out pretty well.
The screen we're looking at here is outside in the tutorial section. This is the first time you start walking out. You've just been introduced to Carmine. You're just walking through and looking at the little bit destroyed beauty and seeing the trash all at the level.